think I value my family time more than $20,000 or $30,000.
What's up, guys? Today we have special guest Dan Nguyen.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
So Dan, like you're kind of a newer investor. You
Yeah.
maybe like investing for like a month or a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But you just locked up your first deal, wholesale deal for $70,000.
That's right.
It's crazy because like I feel like we met at the last WealthCon?
Yeah, I think it was the last or the two ago. I can't remember.
Yeah, something like that. We just were, and then you're kind of like deciding whether or not you want to dive into the world of like real estate investing.
Yeah, that's right.
But then like so since we've done that, like you started with like the lead packs and the things with the wealthy investor. And the first deal, so what was it like the first deal like $70,000?
Yeah, so actually it was the second lead that came in. So this could be totally fluke.
Okay.
Or,
so tell us a little bit more about your background. So
yeah,
you lived in, where do you live?
So I live in Toronto, Canada.
Okay, and then you're trying to do deals.
Yeah, I'm trying to do deals in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And so, we're trying to invest from Canada into the U.S. real estate market.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in Canada. You're based out of Canada. You're just starting investing, and you're starting to invest in the Vegas market.
That's right. Yeah.
And then so you just got so now we get your second lead turned into $70,000. It's crazy. I mean, like it just to me like it's sometimes like when I went to like some workshops before in the past where there was like a guru and they're selling like different education packages, right?
Yeah.
And they'll bring up somebody who's like, yeah, these guys like they made like $50,000. I was like, there's no way. I was like, it seems like impossible.
Yeah.
But now that I'm in the world and I swear I see it so often, and it's cool to see like, or I would like to have a conversation with you, kind of walk how you got to this point and like, I mean your goals for the future, but tell us about like the $70,000 deal.
Okay, let's start with the deal first. So the deal is based on inbound leads.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So there's marketing that's going out.
Okay.
It's trying to find people who want to sell their property.
Okay.
So we get the lead that comes in.
Okay.
And then my job is to just try to call them as fast as humanly possible.
Okay.
Right, because sometimes I'm a little delayed or I'm doing something since that lead,
So you get like a text message. How do you know that the lead comes in?
Yeah, so when the lead comes in, they fill out a form on Facebook. It goes into our CRM.
CRM stands for customer
relationship management system.
Something like that. But basically, it's just like a tool, like a Google Sheets or something along those lines that you have a list of like the people who are looking to were submitted on the form.
Yeah, that's right. So it goes into the CRM. The CRM is going to text me right away that there's a new lead.
Okay.
And my job is to just jump on that call as fast as humanly possible.
Why is that important?
Yeah, because I think, when somebody is online and they have the intention, they're thinking, oh, I saw this ad, I really do think I might want to sell my house. They're filling that in. They're sitting there on their computer researching or thinking about it right there and then in that moment. If you wait like 15 minutes or even a half hour later sometimes, they could be on the road, they could be at work, back to work, they could be off their lunch break. It's harder to reach them. I
see.
Yeah.
So as soon as you get the text or you get information, like get notified that somebody submits something online, you want to hit them as soon as possible.
Yeah, as fast as I can. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but
So how fast did you hit this lead?
This lead, I actually called them pretty quick. Okay. I think I was right there and then
like at that moment. A couple minutes or
and she actually answered like right away.
Okay.
So I did that, talked to her for a few minutes, but it was actually not even like directly her property. It was like her family's property, her grandmother's. And so I did have to schedule another call after that, but after talking to her for a while, it did end up, working out.
So let's walk through this like the whole process.
Yeah.
So you they fill out a form online, you get a ding onto your phone. It goes to your CRM. You give them a call immediately, and then so you're talking to this woman, and her family owns a property, and she wants to sell it though. How does that work?
Yeah, so I think it's like sometimes, if it's like an older person, they're gonna have their family members kind of think things through them. For example, if you have like an elderly parent, their kids or their grandkids might be working all together as a family because they obviously don't know tech or anything.
Yeah.
To kind of figure it out for them a way out.
So then you got contacted, and then what was like the next steps? You scheduled a second call?
Yeah, so I scheduled another call to kind of go through the entire process to just see, where they're at, what they're thinking, what they're planning, what their situation is, how much money do they want for the property. And after talking to her for a while, they really did give me the intention that they wanted to sell pretty fast, and they wanted like the simplest processes.
Got it.
Yeah.
So did they give you a price too, or how did that work?
So I actually pitched them on a price to begin with. Initially, I actually thought of buying this as a flip property.
For yourself?
So, yeah, for myself. So, I calculated the ARV. Okay. So the ARV, if you guys don't know, is like the after repair value.
What it's worth once it's fixed up. And
once it's fixed up, yeah, exactly. So once it's fixed up, this one actually was going to be worth around $430 to $450. Okay. So, according to the courses, we have to lock things up at around 30% ARV. 30%
ARV?
Yeah, off of ARV.
Okay, off of it. So like 70% of ARV.
Yeah, 70% of ARV, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that landed us into like the high 200s.
Okay.
So I did the offer at 270.
Okay.
This is without seeing the property or anything like that.
It's kind of like a blind offer. You've never visited or anything.
Yeah, no idea how it's going to turn out. After that, I got her to actually send me some pictures.
Okay.
So it turned out to be a lot worse than
I
thought.
Okay.
So my dilemma at first was, okay, do I buy this as a flip? Turned out it was also on the main road.
Okay.
So I was a little bit nervous,
So why is it bad that it's on the main road?
Yeah, so if it's on the main road, I think a lot of buyers it'll turn off a good number of buyers. So your buyer pool is a lot smaller. And as like one of my first flip properties that I was thinking of getting, I didn't want to risk that. It wasn't like a sure shot kind of win.
Yeah. So like a little background. You are a real estate agent as well too in Toronto?
That's right, yeah. So I started that in 2008.
Okay, so you've been a real estate agent for like a long time before this. But I'd love to talk into how you decided to turn from agent to investor. Yeah. But just talk into that situation about like the main roads. Why are main roads better? Like why less desirable?
Yeah, I think noise. If you have a family, you are always thinking safety. You don't want to be like loading up the car, the kids are outside, and all of a sudden they run onto the main road and there's a car going by quickly. So I think noise, that, just like quiet, like, you'd rather be in a quieter area.
So it's always better to be like a little bit inside the interior of the main road, just on average.
Yeah, exactly. You want to let the neighbors who are on the main road to be kind of the noise blocker for you.
Okay, yeah. I like that. Okay. Okay, so like that. So you got the pictures. They're bad. They're worse than what you expected. So what's the next?
So we actually. So I thought, what? Let's just see. Everyone's talking about wholesales and stuff. Let me just put it out there. By putting out there, I meant posting it on like Facebook groups and stuff for investors. Okay. So I just decided, okay, let me just list this for like $299. Okay. Just to see if there's anybody else out there that's willing to take it. Okay. Because I'd rather take a smaller win and just, sell it off rather than having to keep it as a flip. Yeah.
Right? And then like take the risk and everything.
Exactly. Right. So, so I listed it up on Facebook. There's like a Facebook investor group here in Las Vegas. Okay. And it ended up being that they offered me $270.
The investors wanted to buy it for $270.
Yeah, which is actually the same price that I had it locked up at.
Yeah.
Right. So I had the contract at $270. They offered $270, and it makes sense. I told them, hey, this makes sense because I personally was gonna try to flip it, and that's the number that I needed for the deal to work. Yeah. And obviously, different people have different risk profiles, right? So for me, I wasn't willing to take the risk on the main road. For other guys who are experienced, or maybe they have more cash or whatever it is, they're maybe willing to take it, right? Yeah. So I told them, you know what? Let's get that offer on paper. I signed it up. I didn't want to say no.
So you're just going to give it to them for free?
Well, so I told them, let's get that offer through. You sign your side. Okay. I'm not going to sign my side yet. Okay. I said, okay. Once I have that in, I'm going to go back to the seller and see if I can make it work. Okay. Because they actually asked me for the underlying contract. So they actually knew that I had it at 270 as well. Okay. So I told them, just to be upfront, I'm going to see if I could get a little bit off of this. Okay. And so I actually went back to the seller, and it actually was a lot of work with that house. It was not by no means an easy flip. So I went back to the seller, and I was like, hey, you know what? After going through with our contractor, we actually had a contractor go through officially as well. Okay. We think that the number that we need to get to is around, like 210, 215. I was just trying to feel it out. Yeah, right? Yeah. But she actually came back to me and she said, hey, if you can guarantee us that you're going to close on this by next month, you can have it for 200.
Oh wow! So she you offered her 215, but she's like, hey, I'll sell it for 200.
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy. I mean, like, to me, like, when you think about buying these houses, a lot of times you're like, why would anyone ever sell it for less than what they could get in the market? Like, you know, but it's sometimes like, it's just like, and it has happened to me before too. It's kind of crazy where I'm like, hey, we can buy for this. They're actually, no, I'll actually buy and sell to you for less. And like, it doesn't make any sense, but it's just because you're providing a service of ease of use and the guaranteed sale and the quick close that they're like, hey, like, I just appreciate the service aspect of it versus just like the price.
Yeah, and I think for like a family that's dealing with like an elderly person, you know, the whole family is involved.
Yeah.
Like, they're not concerned as much. And by the way, it's also under pre-foreclosure.
Okay.
So there is a
little tension and stress attached to it.
So the family, obviously, they have their lives as well. They don't want to deal with it. They're just like, if we could just close it out, they get a little bit of something, it's better for them. So I mean, who knows what the reasons why people, you know, want to sell for.
It's just crazy because if you're like, hey, how about 215, and they're like, no, how about 200? It's like it's like a reverse like negotiation, you know?
Yeah, it's like we would never do that ever in our own lives.
I mean, it's crazy because you think you never would, but then like sometimes it's like I have been done times when someone's like, hey, how about this? But like so even like we hired a VA but recently, and they're like, hey, can I have like $10 an hour? Like, no. How about we hire you for 12? Just go. I mean, like, there's a lot of different reasons why we want to do that, but just because, like, hey, like, I think you're more valuable than this, and I really want to show you up front to appreciate you. So there's like, I'm like reverse negotiating this person, right?
Yeah.
But then the same kind of like this person's like, hey, like, if you can get this done for me, I'll give you even a bigger discount because I just appreciate you for like what the services you're giving me. As long as you can guarantee you can close. Right?
I think it's more like everyone has different perceptions of value, right? So for me, like that wouldn't. For me, I'm looking at dollar amounts.
Yeah.
But their value is just like we just need to get it gone.
The guarantee and the convenience, right?
Exactly.
Those are the two things that you're kind of providing.
And for me, you know, like at that number, I was like, whether the wholesale works out or not now, I can close on that property. So I felt secure in giving them that guarantee too, because I think that was the most important thing for me.
Yeah. So, okay, so you lock it up at 200, which is crazy now. And then, so what's the next step in the process?
So the next step is I then sign that contract.
Okay, with the end buyer.
With the end buyer on the other side. And so the deal was basically done there.
Okay.
And then it went into escrow.
Okay.
And I think it was about 3 weeks later.
Okay.
The property closed.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah,
It's crazy. I mean, so you've been a real estate agent for like how long have you been a real estate agent for?
Yeah, so 08, so what is that now? Going on 17 years.
Okay. So what made you decide like to go from a real estate agent to like step into the investor side?
Yeah, so I think the long story is sometimes you get really comfortable and you're just kind of on the same track for so long that you don't really want to think outside the box.
Yeah.
Until something triggers you to want to have a shift of change. So this is by no means me complaining that like, oh, you know, my life was hard or anything.
Yeah.
Things were good, you know. We made good money in all those years. You know, some years were good, some years were bad. But
just out of curiosity, how much do you make as a realtor?
Yeah, so most years we're making like I would say $250 to $400.
That's really dude. That's I mean, so like as a regular job, that's very very high pay. Like, you know, like and when I was working as a software developer, I made like $80,000. Yeah. So like if I made honestly like if I made $100,000 as a software developer, I would never have done real estate because I'd be happy already. Yeah. But like $250 to $400, that's a very comfortable. I feel like that's very very high salary.
Yes.
So I mean, like, why give that up to go into like real estate investing?
Yeah. You know? So, you know, it's been a very hard struggle for me to kind of battle through those emotions. Yeah. Because I think part of it is like, man, I built this thing, and
I mean, from what I know from a real estate agent, like, I guess service, the beginning is always the hardest. Yes. Then once you build up your book of business, now you're kind of like, it's a lot easier to find like clients, etc.
They're finding you.
Yeah. So I mean, so like you basically have like this, not passive, but like life is easy once you kind of become established. But now you're diving into like this new world where you have to learn all new skills and like learn new things, you know?
Yeah. For me, I've always been, I think, entrepreneurial. So we've had other businesses. We can talk about that another time or after or whatever. But I think for me, that shift in the last few years, number one was, you know, having kids. You know, before when I was, you know, 20, 25, even 30s, even when my kids were like really, really little, like in diapers and stuff, time didn't really matter that much, right? Whether I go out and show clients on a Monday afternoon or a Wednesday evening, a Friday night or Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon, there's no difference between those days, right? It's all the same. Yeah. But now my kids can talk, They could say things like, Dad, you're working again? And, you know, that hit me hard, you know? I remember, like, being really emotional on a drive, and, like, most people don't even ever see this, because I'm, like, a pretty even-keeled,
you seem like
steady
a very,
person.
Like, you feel like you got it together. You know?
Yeah, you know, I was, like, driving on a Saturday morning to, like, show some houses. And I was like, I didn't really want to do it. Because, like, I was like, I'd rather be home with my family right now. What am I doing, you know? Chasing after, like, I mean, anyone, like, okay, when you hear this and it's like, okay, if you're going to make 20, 30,000, anyone, you know, if you're working a regular job, you're going to be like, yeah, I'll do that any day to make 20, 30K, you know, like, but at the end of the day, it comes down to, like, what you value. And I said, I think I value my family time more than $20,000 or $30,000. It's worth more to me.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy to hear. I mean, it matters where you are in your life, but I think, like, you've had a lot of success where, like, there's always, like, I think, like, when you're struggling, like, you need money just to survive.
Yeah.
But at a certain point when you're, like, you're decent enough and you're stable, it becomes, like, there's a diminishing returns on how much you make. So now the equation is like, okay, time becomes more valuable than the money at a certain point. It sounds like you're at that point in your life.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, do I sacrifice my family to make one extra deal? It's like, maybe this is not worth it for me to do. And so I guess that's what kind of got me on the trajectory of trying to figure out what are the other ways for me to perhaps shift, perhaps add another vertical to the business, like maybe work less residential, more investing, or I don't know. It's very blurry when you're in these moments, right? You don't really know what the proper decision is.
The challenge is, like, when you're looking at, like, you're faced with a problem, right? Like, the problem is your current work schedule and your current career won't allow you to have, like, the time freedom that you need with your family. But, like, you don't know what how to fix that yet, or what the alternative is going to be.
That's right. Yeah. So you're just exploring options. So, you know, like, as an agent, there's a couple things that you could do. You could become a brokerage. Okay. Right? Because then it becomes a different business, right? You're hiring agents, you're building culture. So it is more like a business. But there's one thing that I knew as an agent that I didn't like doing is working with agents.
Why is that?
It's just like the different types of agents and the characters and the people. Like, that's just, like, not my thing. Like, I don't want to have to hold people's hands. I don't want to have to get them, like, train them up in certain ways. And, you know, on the flip side of the brokerage is you could also build a team. Both things are kind of similar. But at the same time, like, if you're not, like, a top performing agent, then eventually your team is going to become better.
I see.
And as agents with egos and type A personalities and stuff, they want to be the top dog one day too. So they're going to leave you. Right?
You know, it's really, I mean, I find that really insightful, interesting, because, like, I feel like I have, like, a lot of agent friends and I love them to death. But I feel like there is a culture of, like, some ego, and there is, like, some things where, like, it's, like, status is a big part of, like, the agent world.
Yeah. So I was like, that's not really my thing. I told my wife, I was like, I just want to, like, sit in my pajamas and do deals, you know, at home. And obviously that's not, like, the perfect scenario. It could be the perfect scenario, but that's maybe not the one that I'm going to choose. But wouldn't it be awesome if I could just, like, be in my pajamas and do deals? And so going back to this wholesale, literally I was in my pajamas doing deals at my dinner table.
Making $70,000 a pop.
Yeah, more than most of my real estate deals, right? Without ever having to see this person. I don't have to pretend to be their friend, right? It's just
what do you mean by that? Like,
well, I think in the real estate world, you know, people's personalities are very important.
Yeah.
Right? And people like to work with people they like.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And so you can't just be like, let's just get down to business.
Yeah.
Like, let's just find you the house and have, like, no relational aspect to it, you know? But I never really loved that because, you know, I like relationships.
Yeah.
You know, I like the relationships that we've built here together, you know, being in investors groups together and the friendships that we have, and they're very intentional.
Yeah.
But I don't like just, you know, gifting people and taking them out to dinner just for the hopes that one day they'll use me as an agent.
You know, it's so interesting because, like, for, like, a lot of my friends who are agents, like, I'm never sure if they're my friend because they're my friend or they're my friend because they're on the clock as an agent. Like, it's a tricky hat to wear, and, like, it's not their fault. It's just the way the industry is structured is that, like, it's like your job is to basically to make friends and to have them choose you over the other options that they have. And so it's such a tricky, like, I can never tell if like they're genuinely my friend or they want or they're gonna get something from me, you know. But I mean, like I think some of them are genuinely are my friends. Others I think like they just want something from me later. Like
and I didn't like that. Like I want to have genuine conversations. I want to truly be in your life if I'm your friend, right? Versus like, yeah, it's nice that I get to spend some time with you, that we get to know each other during the process, but eventually, you know, we're going to both go our separate ways. And I felt like I had to put so much emotional attachment during the process. And then it's like, then it just ends. You know what I mean? And then I have to pretend to keep up with them so that maybe 7 years from now they'll sell their house with me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So like that's
I
like,
get it, I mean, it's a business.
It is,
but it's like it's so interesting. But yeah, it's such a like nuanced kind of relationship that you're building.
And so you know, and so for a long time, I was focused on creating a great product in real estate. Great product being like our listings are always very polished.
Okay,
they're the nicest. Our negotiation strategies are always like
but really the product is you, right? Like when you look into things like
because people don't see that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think inside core value wise, I would hope that people would value those things because it's actually what makes the difference.
Yeah, like the little so you get a little extra. Or it makes it a little smoother, etc.
So then when you see the guy that you're like, this guy's kind of like, his products are like, his listings are not great, or
They take the picture of like this iPhone with
but they've got a great personality. They're like the nicest guy in the world, and they get all the deals, right? And I'm like, I don't really like that. You know what I mean? For me, I want to create a great product. I want to bring great value, and I'd also like them to value me for the value that I bring.
I got you.
Versus like it's one of those weird worlds where sometimes the value that they bring is low, but
the salesmanship is high.
Right? So there's like a discrepancy between the two.
I feel like there's a lot of things in business where it's like the real value of the business is oftentimes in the sales and marketing more than the product itself. You know, it's perceived value than actual value.
Yes, perceived value is like the highest thing.
It's more important than actual value. Like sometimes.
For sure. That's why, like on the real estate side, you know, I'm sure you know this as as a flipper, as a home builder, is like sometimes you choose for the way things look in a house. It might not be the highest end materials or anything, but the package makes it seem higher end, and that's perceived value, right? And so I think people who understand perceived value will typically make the sale. But I want to have both. I want to have great value, great perceived value, and I know I'm giving that properly. So
you're kind of like you're leaning towards like maybe not doing the real estate agent thing for a long time more, and then how did you find or choose like wholesaling or flipping houses?
So actually my real estate partner, funny enough, Terrence, shout out Terrence, he was like, hey, have you seen this guy on social media? His name's Ryan Pineda. And I was like, no. It's like I don't really watch gurus and stuff because like I could just learn everything myself.
Why would I felt the same way when I first
like he's probably gonna scam me anyways, right? Like it can't be true, right? And then every time you hear like a testimonial or something like that that comes from them, you're like, of course they're gonna give you all the good information, right? So I've always been a skeptic, but then I actually listened to his podcast. So shout out Ryan too.
With who?
You mean Ryan's podcast?
Yeah. What just like general episodes or like
so all like the long form.
The Wealthy Investor.
Wealthy
podcast, or Wealthy.
Wealthy Way.
Wealthy Way. Okay.
Wealthy Way. Yeah. I actually listened to every one of his episodes.
Really?
For like a whole year.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's a lot of episodes.
So after a whole year of like 1 hour episodes.
And how many words that?
I don't know.
Dude, that's a lot of. I mean, it's crazy because when I first started, I did the exact same thing. I listened to Bigger Pockets. I literally listened from like 1 to like 380. Like every single episode. Like I never missed an episode. It's crazy. I consume so much content from podcasts.
It must have been like 50 episodes or something.
But that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And they're long too, right? Like an hour, 2 hours sometimes. They're all on the drive, so it's not like I'm sitting there watching. It's all while I'm driving.
Yeah.
And if you're in Toronto, that's like 1 hour drive. So I listened to him for a year, and I'm like, maybe this guy's legit. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go to WealthCon and stuff like that. And just
WealthCon is his like annual or some annual event that he throws.
Yeah, so it's like a big real estate conference.
Okay.
And so we attended that, me and my dad actually. I took my dad. I was like, hey, Dad, you want to go to this thing?
Did I meet your dad before?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So I took my dad. I was like, hey, let's go check out this real estate thing. Because my dad has always been kind of like, he's actually the driver behind why I'm in real estate to begin with. maybe a story for another day. But I went to the conference, and I already had all these things in mind. The wanting to find another thing to get into, just overall curiosity, and like what the other side of real estate.
Yeah.
Right, because I've got the retail side as an agent. Like,
did you ever deal with any investors when you're an agent?
Yeah, we dealt with investors, but I think there's a lot of questions that come up that like we don't actually know as agents. Like, I always thought like other people's money is kind of a scam too.
Really?
Maybe not a scam, but like how are you going to get enough money from other people?
I see. It's like, so when people preach like you can do real estate with no money, no money, you're like, there's no way.
Yeah, right. And also like fix and flips, if you calculate them off like retail listings, they never penned out, right?
Really?
So, like pretty rare.
Or if you buy them like from
off the MLS,
off the MLS,
off the MLS. Like even like, okay, let's say I calculate like I could negotiate $20,000 off the price. It still doesn't work out for a flip. Right? So not knowing like how people buy these properties. So you're kind of like in the dark completely over, how this whole entire
it's kind of like a different like there's like a big divider silo, and so it's kind of interesting because when I first started as an investor, I always wondered like why don't more agents like flip houses, or like just because it seems like so natural. And then the more I talk to agents, it's like they know absolutely like nothing of that world. It's crazy how like little like agents know about this investing world sometimes.
So I think the one that's probably most common is really just like, does this pen out as a buy and hold rental? Right? And back in the days, it was a lot easier. Throw it in the numbers, if it cash flows a little bit, good enough investment, right? Now that it's like very negative, especially in the Toronto market, it's a lot harder to do. So I also wanted to know for myself, like what other ways are there to invest? And I never really sold people on that, because in Toronto, even in the best of times, when interest rates were ultra low. Like we were already cash flow negative.
Same with Hawaii. Hawaii's exactly the same thing.
And now with the high interest rates in the last few years.
Super negative.
You're like thousands of dollars negative. Like people are going like bankrupt from how negative it is. So then I decided, let's do this WealthCon thing, just see what it's all about, and hopefully I'll learn something. And then while I was there, the pitch came, and I'm like,
the pitch.
I was like, this is a Canadian credit card, okay? This Canadian Amex, if I tap this and it goes through, then I'm in.
Really? That's what I mean, so I guess the way that a lot of times these things work, right? Full transparency is, like you go to the event, like they'll have some speakers and things, and then there's always a pitch, like, hey, we want to sell you a package where there's 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, whatever it is, right? And so like the way that like it's probably something that they hype it up, like sometimes it's good, but then like you listen to the pitch, and then was it how much was like the entry for this guy?
I think it was 30,000.
Okay, because that's a lot of money to just drop
It is. Now I want to preface this with, I think risk, you build up the tolerance for risk. So it's not the first time that I have put money on the line to start a business or to learn about the business that I might want to get into.
I see.
So it wasn't as nerve-wracking as maybe for a first-time person.
Like W2, you've never invested money.
Exactly. So I knew that like in the past, I have done something like this before, and it worked out. So I could do it again.
Okay.
I didn't even talk to my wife yet at this point.
Okay, that's not good.
But I was sitting there, I was like, I think she trusts me.
Okay. That's a lot of trust.
Like in the past, we've done it before, and it's worked out. So I think on this time, I was with my dad, so at least I had some kind of accountability. And I was like, should I do this? Like, I think you should do it. And he's an entrepreneur too, so he knows all about risk and stuff too. So I was like, all right, cool. So I'm like a little bit nervous because like, man, this is a big chunk to drop, know. And so I was like, actually, I was with Javi, who works with Ryan, and I was like, you know what? If this credit card, the Canadian card, because sometimes you're international and the cards don't work if it's like a big amount because they think it's a scam or fraud or whatever. So I'm like, if this goes through, I'm in. If this doesn't go through, I'll have to go talk to my wife. So I tapped it. Tapped it. It goes through. I'm like, all right, I'm in. So from that point on, I was really dedicated to this past year to really learning everything and trying to gain clarity on what is it that I have to do.
So when did you actually join? What point?
Actually, I think it was like exactly 1 year ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is January 2024.
Okay. And then like the next like year was just like learning and like understanding, and how did that journey kind of play out?
Yeah, so I think one of the hardest parts was because I was international, is figuring out, okay, number one, do I do this in Canada? Does it make sense if I do it in Canada? Or do I do it in the States, and why there? And then the biggest bottleneck for me was actually figuring out the tax differences between two countries. How do I set up the entities for this like international enterprise?
What do you think? Do you want to be the 51st state?
Yeah, I've already declared that I'm the CEO of the 51st state.
Nice.
So no, I think it's all a gag at the end of the day.
It'll be hard to make that happen.
Yeah, and I think Canadians, despite the numerous and many problems that we have as a nation, we're still proud to be Canadians, right? And so I don't think there's any way that it's ever going to happen. And if it does happen, Hawaii will have 40 million more people, because everybody in frozen Canada is going to want to move to somewhere warm.
Come on down.
So I think Florida, Texas, California, and Hawaii will have an influx of people, and there will be no more people living in Canada. But yeah, so I had to figure out the cross-border thing. Okay. So that took me 6 months to figure out and to actually get everything set up. After I set everything up, during that process, I was just trying to learn as much as possible about the different avenues. Trying to figure out,
like flipping, wholesaling, Airbnb, like
mid-term rentals, short-term rentals, passport. There's like so many different options, right? And you're getting like, okay, and you hear stories from one person, and I hear your story, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should do that. And I hear another guy having success somewhere else. And
the crazy thing is like everybody like there's like the what's it called, like the survivorship bias, right? Where like you're hearing only the stories of the guys who actually made it.
Yes.
And then the guys who actually made it, when they talk about it, it sounds very easy. So then like they make it sound easy because they actually made it, and so like everything works, like Airbnb, midterm, flipping, BRRRRs, like multifamily, it all works. And then you just talk to the guy who's doing it successfully, you're like, oh, this sounds so easy, like let me try this one. And then the other guy tells, oh, let me try this one. It's hard to like really pinpoint where you should put your energy.
And the market like changes, and so the thing that used to work might not work as well.
That's true.
So I wasn't like completely oblivious to how businesses function and work. So I'm trying to adapt what I've previously known, what I previously know, to something that I feel like I would have the most leverage at the get-go, right? So on top of that, trying to figure out like how everything's going to work, and on top of that, can I even do it from Canada? Like, and I was always checking with my wife, like, do you think I could not as reassurance?
What did your wife say when you told her you must swipe $30,000 on the credit card?
She was actually okay with it. Yeah, she's like, cool. Wow. Yeah. We're both very like quick decision makers and risk takers. And so she was okay with it, and so we just decided we're gonna go for this thing. And I was always asking her, what do you think? Like, do you see me like? Cause at first it was like wholesaling was like, okay, you gotta sit on calls and you're gonna call lists all day, all night. Make like 1,000 dials, 10,000 dials.
Yeah.
And she's like, you can't even sit there and do like a task for like 2 hours straight. How are you going to sit there for like 5 hours a day cold calling?
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? You're right. I'm probably not going to ever do that. And so it's not that I shut down wholesaling. I think I just wanted to figure out what's the best option for me. So fix and flip was one of those options because I was actually kind of already doing it in Canada, but just for my clients.
I see.
Yeah. So what we were doing essentially was just, let's say you're listing a property and it was just dated.
So you come in, like help them like renovate.
We would just manage the whole thing for them. They're fronting the money for their own property, and then
you sell it for like a higher price.
We sell for a higher price, and we didn't actually charge anything, so it was like a free
service.
Service, a high value, low payout for me. But then so at the end of it, just to get to the deal, we started hearing about wholesaling, novations, and so I decided, let's just invest into the ads. It seems like it makes the most sense because for sales I'm already used to talking to people all day, all night. That's probably the fastest way for me to get to a deal.
Got it. Yeah.
And so that's how I got to that deal.
That's amazing, man. I mean, so like just it seemed like once you decide to take action or once you decide to start the ads up, then like it's crazy how like you got a deal so fast.
Yeah.
And like what's like do you think it'll continue on the cycle? Kind of what's like the projected game plan for this coming year, you think?
Yeah. So actually in that time I also partnered with another guy for a fix and flip.
Okay.
In Las Vegas.
Okay.
So we're doing fix and flips in Las Vegas. And so, I mean, actually that's probably one of the easiest ways for anyone to get started is just to partner with someone, right? And I think you do that, right?
We partner,
I lend money to certain flippers as well. So it's an easy way to just get your toes wet into the real estate investing. And so, that's one of the easiest ways that I think you can get started into real estate. But for 2025, I think we're kind of going all in on wholesaling and novations.
Okay.
And then we're going to have a little bit of fixing and flipping mixed into it.
Do you think like are you still doing like being a realtor during this time, or kind of what's like that balance going to?
Yeah, that's probably my most difficult decision because, there's a part of me that's like, well, you've built all this equity in terms of that business. Yeah. Into all the things you've built over the years, the relationships that you've had. Do I just go cold turkey and just stop this? And so I think I'm going to do a quick phase out because I still have my partners in there and stuff. Anyone that has they want to do a listing, I'll refer it out to them. It's still on our team. So I'll still have eyes on it. They're going to do all the work. Anything that has like a higher ROI right now on my time, I'll probably still take those projects. Yeah. But my ultimate goal is to actually move to the U.S.
Really?
Yeah.
So where do you want to move to?
So I'm actually thinking of moving to Las Vegas.
Nah, you don't want to move to Hawaii?
Well, isn't it part of Hawaii pretty much?
I did that. But actually it makes more sense because if you're doing deals in Vegas, it's better to be where you're doing deals. Yeah. So.
And I think just time flying if I need to go back.
To Canada.
And stuff. It's still a little bit easier. But I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody does want to live in Hawaii at one point or another. Yeah.
I mean, it's a good place to retire.
Maybe my plan is to one day maybe have a property in Hawaii and that I can visit.
Well, I mean, you can always stay with me when you come visit. So
I appreciate that, man.
But then, I mean, so just looking for your trajectory, I think one of the things that I was stuck out to me when I met you was you're very successful as an agent, and I feel like whenever you're successful in a venture, it translates into another vertical. Just because it's the same skill set that success, the winners win. I just feel and so what do you think it is about your background? Is it your grit? What qualities allows you to have success as an agent and also as a real estate investor?
Yeah, I think for me it's always been just about excellence. I would say I don't have that great of grit.
Okay, explain what do you mean by that?
I don't have a hard struggle story that has built me into this person who has a chip on his shoulder that has to prove to the world. But I think the blessing that I had was that I grew up around other entrepreneurs within my family. And so I saw the things that they did in order to get to where they are today.
So I mean that's a form of grit is basically just being able to handle uncomfortable situations and continue to keep going. So you didn't have a traumatic experience that allowed you to have that, but you saw grit played out in your family's life in front of you, and it's almost getting ingrained into that's a core value of yours anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So I think my parents never gave everything to me in terms of hey, if you want to have a business, here's the funding for it or anything. I always had to figure all that stuff out myself, and I'm very thankful for that because. It was lessons that I had to learn. So it wasn't you grew up in a family that was better, more well off or whatever, and now you have it all easy. Your losses are already covered. We went through a lot of struggles, even in some of my other businesses that I did with my wife before. But I think being around my dad, for example, who was an entrepreneur, who woke up every day and left the house at 6 a.m., got home at 11 p.m. During my childhood. I think seeing that and where his company was at, even up to today, it instilled you need to work.
it kind of sets the standard. I feel like for like your, and so like I feel like we all have like this standard, like this is just like our standard. So like sometimes like if we like, hey, like I need to like stay at like the whatever, like let's say the Marriott, like that's my standard, right? So if I go to like let's say like Excalibur, like, it's below my standard. If I go to like let's say the Four Seasons, it's above my standard.
Yes.
But it also applies to your life, where like, hey, like my work ethic standard is just like what my standard is. And then like a lot of times our parents or the people who are around us kind of like just ingrain or set that standard for us, and then we kind of like just rise, or sometimes we can beat our standard or become below, but like that's just like subconsciously that's like our standard for life.
Yeah, and I think people could take it in two ways, right? Either they can, and it really comes down to the family's values too, right? Like if their value, and I know this with a lot of like immigrant families and stuff, is like sometimes they come to the U.S. or from wherever they're from, war-torn countries or whatever, immigration for whatever reason, and they get accidentally becoming an entrepreneur because no one's going to hire them. They don't speak the language well, for whatever reason, and they become these entrepreneurs out of necessity.
Yeah.
But their value is actually still security and comfort. They're doing that to build a secure and comfortable life for their family. And so for some people, I think even if they're wealthy as a family, they still are stuck on that security and comfort value. Yeah. And so some of their kids don't actually end up becoming entrepreneurs or whatever because they don't want their kids to be that. Because they want their kids to be comfortable.
I see. So they never put them through any struggles or challenge them, because the whole reason why they're going through the struggles is so that their kids can be comfortable.
I'm gonna pay for your school. I'm gonna
give them a great life.
Yeah, give you a great life.
Or perceive great life, like from the parents, right?
Yeah. So, right? Like, I'm gonna help you with your down payment on your house. I'm gonna even pay for your mortgage, maybe. Pay for your whole house.
But then you never get to experience the challenges or the obstacles that kind of grow your character, right? So like they call I think Ryan Holiday has like that book, like obstacle is the way, whereas like the obstacle is actually the way for you improvement. A lot of times you want to avoid the obstacle, but it's so healthy to run towards the obstacle.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing that I got instilled with is like, you have to make the decision at the end of the day, right? I think a lot of those types of families, they want to dictate all the things for their kids because they don't want them to make a bad decision. That's so Asian. It is a super Asian thing, right? I don't want my kids to make a bad decision, so I'm just going to make all the decisions for you for your whole life. And then they grow up, and then they don't know how to navigate the real world. But they're comfortable. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so there's a few people that break out of that matrix. Some of them never do. But for me, I don't think my family was ever like that. They always like hustled. They did the work. They did excellence in their work, and for me, I think that translated. They gave me the breathing room. They let me make mistakes. They didn't fix my mistakes when they were there. Like, I remember with one of our businesses, like, our cash flow was just like, we're bleeding out. We're working like 60 hours a week. Like, we couldn't pull a profit. We were like borrowing from one pocket to lend to the other pocket just to make things work and make payroll and all this stuff. And in that time, I would tell my dad. He'd be like, "Oh, okay." Like, he wouldn't even really give that much advice, to be honest. He'd just be like, "Okay, well, see if you can figure it out."
That's funny.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right. And I think those are really things that really like help you actually grow, right? And so I'm very thankful for those times. In those moments, I was like, could you just throw me like a line of credit or something? Like, just offer. I'm not gonna ask, but like, I feel like if I was I'd be like, "Hey, do you need a line of credit just to keep you safe?" But then you'll never learn.
Yeah.
Right. And so so I had that, and I also saw my grandma. She was like always living in houses and fixing and flipping them. So it's funny. It's like in the family still all these years. And so just the family is very important. I think it instills the values. And I think you have to be intentional. Otherwise, you'll end up with the people who are just on autopilot.
We were on a call the other day, and I saw you were actually coaching some of the newer students. So it seems like a lot of people like listen to you or have like value what you have to say. I mean, like have you kind of noticed like you have like more of like a coach presence or like a teacher kind of like vibe, or what's
I think about it, and I think I do have like a very like. It's part of my character that I want to help people win, and I want to see them win, and I want to see them through. and I want them to value what I'm telling them because, oh no, I want them to value what I'm telling them.
Okay.
Because I feel like I always do have people's best interests at heart. It's not it's not even like a core value that I have to make up. It's just like part of who I am.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, that coaching thing, and I've been thinking about that as well. Like, how could I add value to the marketplace? And I've been thinking about like, okay, well, I'm doing this thing where I'm investing from Canada into the U.S. That's a very small niche that not a lot of people are in.
Yeah.
So I might be pursuing something in that realm to maybe not be an exact coach.
But provide a product to help people in that.
Exactly, to guide them through that process from investing from Canada into the U.S. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so maybe like for like a newer investor, like they kind of see like some of the things you've been doing. First deal, $70,000 right off the bat. What's like maybe one piece of advice you would give to like a newer investor?
Newer investor, I would say you got to learn, and I think you got to implement, because I think a lot of people, they end up learning a lot of things, and they're not willing to just close their eyes and just hit go. You know, they overanalyze. They're trying to figure out, well, I need the stars to align before I pull the trigger and do something. I think you want to learn, and you want to have to start learning about your kind of like risk-taking muscle. Because I think risk-taking is actually one of the hurdles for a lot of people. They don't ever get to their first deal because they're never willing to take the next risk.
I see. Yeah.
Right? And so why did I pay for the coaching program? Because I already had that muscle from another thing that I took a risk on. And that one came from another risk that I took. And so you kind of like...
It's like baby steps, you slowly kind of like building up that...
Exactly.
That tolerance.
Right? So, for example, in order to get these leads, you have to put out marketing dollars. And if your marketing dollars is like $10,000, I'm like, oh my gosh, $10,000. But then I sometimes remind myself, but $10,000 is less than some other risks you've taken. And, you know, after a while you start to learn, well, I could make $10,000 back by doing something. So then you're just like, okay, I could hustle it back if I need to. So you just take the risk.
That's really good. Well, if people want to reach out to you or find out more about you, what's the best place to do it?
Yeah, you can hit me up on Instagram or TikTok. Dan Nguyen, that's my last name, Nguyen. Everyone knows it. No one can spell it. DanNguyen.to.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on the show.
All right, man.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it, man.